Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Skip Mason,
pastor, preacher, historian, author,
teacher, librarian, archivist, world traveler,
collector, family historian, avid reader, and creator of the popular Vanishing Black Atlanta Facebook page.
But a lot of folks who love history.
Most importantly,
he's our
dad who loves his family and who taught us the importance of our history and having important conversations.
Join him now for this episode of Conversations with Dr. Skip.
Well, good Monday evening, my brothers and my sisters. I sure do appreciate you tuning in tonight for a very special conversation honoring and remembering the legacy of one of the greatest fighters for civil rights, for our rights, for equal rights. That, of course, is the one and only Hosea Williams. And this evening, we're going to share with members of his family some recollections. I pulled up some footage as well that we're going to share. But I would just ask that you would take a moment to invite some of your friends on Facebook to share, to host a watch party. And to spend a few moments. I know some of you are watching Dancing with the Stars, okay, but today marks the 20th anniversary of the passing of one of the greatest fighters and warriors of all times, Hosea Williams. And I'm so glad that we're going to be remembering him tonight. But also, before we bring up members of the family, today also marks the anniversary of the death of another fighter. But this fighter was inside of the ring, not outside the ring. Some of you may be familiar in Atlanta's history and lore with a boxer by the name of Tiger Flowers. Tiger Flowers was the first African-American middleweight boxing champion in the world, born in Camilla, Georgia. And he made his way to Atlanta and began to work in the boxing circuit, and subsequently became a distinguished pugilist and fought many bouts and won in 1926 the middleweight championship of the world. Flowers had a beautiful home in Atlanta and was a philanthropist. He was a member of the Butler Street CME Church. He was a steward, what the Baptist folks call a deacon. And on November the 16th, 1927, Tiger Flowers died after an operation that was considered a routine operation. On this very day, the same day that we honor the memory of Hosea Williams, Tiger Flowers had a huge funeral. And these are a few images of his funeral. And his funeral was held at the old City Auditorium. Some of you are old enough to remember the City Auditorium, downtown Atlanta. And it was a huge funeral for this great fighter and boxer and warrior. And most recently, believe it or not, Tiger Flowers has been dead since 1927, but some film footage was located of his family. So permit me to share this, and then we're going to transition to another fighter and warrior. That is the Honorable Hosea Williams. But check out this rare film footage of boxer Tiger Flowers and his family.
Middleweight ruler was a church deacon after dropping the crown to Mickey Walker in 1926. Flowers manager Miller, the fighter, and his wife and child, the year the Tiger lost to the toy bulldog, the title he won from Harry Graff. Middleweight ruler.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, film footage of Tiger Flowers taken some 90 years ago. But today we honor and we remember that fighter in the ring. But now we honor a warrior outside of the ring. And just for somebody who has just been under an absolute rock and has not ever heard of Hosea Williams, permit me to share this very brief clip. And then we're going to bring his family up.
During the holidays, we're reminded of civil rights leader Hosea Williams' lasting legacy with the nonprofit Hosea Helps, his name becoming synonymous with Atlanta's identity. Here's a look behind that name and how it continues to make a huge impact to this day. The civil rights leader living forever in history through what he loved.
We do feed hungry bellies, but that program also feeds hungry minds.
Hosea Williams has created something that has become part of Atlanta's identity since 1970. Hosea Helps. He worked tirelessly to make sure the homeless and hungry had a helping hand during the holiday season and year-round. His daughter, Elizabeth Omilami, now carrying on that legacy.
We might not be able to do anything about all the horrors in our world. One thing we can do is this.
Outside of creating a lasting organization, Hosea Williams fought alongside civil rights leaders for the Voting Rights Act and helped lead the Selma to Montgomery March, which became known as Bloody Sunday.
We got to the edge of the bridge. Hosea Williams said, "John, can you swim?" I said, "No." And we continued to walk. We had to keep going.
At least I can stand up and speak out and face death whenever it's necessary.
The organization has faced financial hardships over the years with the annual struggle to raise funds and recently became displaced, losing its building. Now, a glimmer of hope, expecting to be in their new home by next year.
Today is a miracle. We will be moving into that new building in 2019.
Over the years, the organization has donated billions of dollars in food and supplies, and that number continues to grow. Hosea Williams' reach and impact far greater than he imagined.
And what we're trying to say to them, as bad as things may be, don't you give up.
Naima Abdullahi, 11 Alive News.
Wasn't that a beautiful tribute? I am so delighted to share with members of the Hosea Williams family on this evening. Let me say hello to all of you, and we sort of have a little feedback, and I think it may be coming. Hold on just a second. Barbara, I'll unmute you. Barbara is unable to hear me from the screen, so she's listening by phone. But when it's time for you to talk, Barbara, I'll unmute you. But we have Lauren Williams. Let me put my Dollar Tree reader glasses. Hi, Lauren. And we have Yolanda Williams Faber. And we have Dr. Barbara Williams Emerson. And I do not want to mispronounce his first name, but I know the middle name, Hosea Emerson. Is that Wheels? Pronounce that for me, please.
It's we used to. You almost had it. We used to. We used to.
Okay. All right.
We used to.
And let me add also Elizabeth and Afimo Omalami. Hello, Williams family. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm so delighted to have you all here today to share, folks, in Atlanta, my Vanishing Black Atlanta page, a little bit about your dad. We think we know him, know how it is, public celebrities, everybody thinks that they know everything about him. But I wanted to have this conversation with you, to share a little footage, and just for you to share your memories. And I don't know who to go first, but I need somebody to talk about your dad, your granddad, and tell us about his early life. I know he was from Attapogus, Georgia.
Attapogus.
Attapogus, right. I went to school with somebody from Attapogus, so I know that it actually exists. But just give us a little bit about his early life and how did he end up in Atlanta? Anyone?
You can put me on. I'll go, Skip.
Okay, Barbara. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Hosea Williams was born in 1926, and he did grow up in Attapogus, Georgia, which is, for those who don't know of the illustrious town, it is down in the corner of the state where Alabama, Georgia, and Florida come together. His mother was a blind young woman, and so was his father. They met in the Macon School for the Colored Blind, where she was a student, as was her brother, who was Jose's namesake, whose name was Hosea also. And both of them were blind, and they were students studying at the Macon School for the Colored Blind. And she actually ran away from school and went down to give birth to him in Florida, because at that time in 1926, it was definitely taboo for an unmarried young woman to have conceived a child. And so she went and had him in Florida, but he grew up in Attapagas on his grandfather's farm, and who was Turner Williams, born on the 4th of July, who somehow had managed to acquire over 100 acres of land down in that corner of Southwest Georgia. And he farmed peanuts because he said he had picked enough cotton and he would never pick more cotton again. Mm-hmm. And so that's where Jose grew up, on the farm. His mother passed away when he was 10 years old. So his grandparents raised him from that age. And then his grandmother, his mother's name was Larcenia, who was Elizabeth is named after, and his grandmother was Lelar. Lelar passed away not very long after Larcenia, and so he was there with his grandfather, Turner Williams, who was very well known in the community, and by being a landowner, was one of the few Black people in the county, this Decatur County, who could vote.
Uh-oh, did we lose Barbara? Well, maybe we did, but I'm certain somebody can pick up with the rest of the story. Barbara was having some technical difficulties early on, and so I think we may have lost her. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. So he came from humble beginnings, and would you think that's probably one of the reasons why he has such compassion for people? All day people have been sharing stories about how he helped and assist them. Would somebody just share and chime in about this, how his early years helped to shape the man that would become the Hosea Williams that we know and we knew?
Well, I'll go. This is Yolanda.
Yes.
The farm that he grew up on was a 300-acre farm with a lake on it. So although it could be considered humble beginnings, all of his aunts were his Aunt Azie, they were school teachers. And we actually did some research and found out that they were within the community, they were loaning people money.
Oh, wow.
Even though Turner could not read or write, on some of the deeds and the loan documents, mm-hmm. you could see where he just, put a line across there. So I think that a part of that, them being as industrious as they were, would have had an effect on his thinking big picture, because he always thought huge picture, big picture. And I think that background that he had with their business sense, things that they were accomplishing way back then, I think that was the beginning of him really learning how to do things, and knowing how to do things, and knowing that there was a better life, and having that business sense that he had.
That's an incredible story, and you don't find very many Black families owning and having that kind of land during that time period. And so he graduated from high school, and I believe he went to the military. Is that correct? Before he came to Atlanta to attend Morris Brown.
Well, he went to the military first.
Yes.
And that's where he was. His unit was hit with a bomb, and he was the only one that survived.
Oh, wow.
and he laid there for, if I'm not mistaken, 3 days, and he was in the hospital for 3 months, I think, if I'm not mistaken, before he got out and came home. And that's when he was in the train station and drank from a whites only water fountain, because the fountain for the blacks, the coloreds, didn't work. And
oh, wow.
there he was beaten and attacked for drinking from the water fountain. And they actually called the undertaker because they thought he was dead. The undertaker found a pulse, and he was taken to the hospital, and he was in the hospital again for an extended period of time before he got out. And that's when he said to himself, did I fight on the wrong side?
Wow. That's
Barb,
an amazing story. Yes, go ahead.
So Barb is back on, but he went to, he got his high school diploma, and then he went to Morris Brown.
Yes.
And got a degree in chemistry. And that's where he met my mother, Juanita Williams. And he said that he was amazed at how smart she was, because he would study, and get a C, and she would just sort of look at the work and come out with an A. So he was, so I guess that's maybe one of the reasons why he fell in love with her. But they married, and then he went to Savannah. He was working as a research chemist for the Department of Agriculture. And it was in Savannah when he started working in the civil rights movement. Wow.
That's great. That is just a wonderful story. And I'm glad. I wanted to take a few moments to talk about the backstory, because, we tend to think that our civil rights leaders, were born to lead movements, and it was a gradual progression. Hosea Williams was a chemist. Okay. And he had a master's degree from Atlanta University, and he worked in the profession, and he did other things prior to the divine occurrence of coming into the civil rights movement and all. So he gets into the movement, but he's not necessarily involved with the SCLC, I believe. When he was in Savannah, Tell us, I think, was it the NAACP? If somebody could just bring some understanding about what he was doing in Savannah, because I believe that was a sort of a life-changing moment for him. Elizabeth, you wanna pick up?
Okay, there was the Chatham County Crusade for Voters. So he was always aware of the power of the ballot. And when we talk about the fact that, he led the movement that led to the Voting Rights Act, and he led the movement that led to the Civil Rights Act. Well, way back in 1949, he was on his way to creating the Chatham County Crusade for Voters, and was very, very instrumental in the Chatham County area of working with WW Law, and had an entire staff down there. Now, we have to remember that he was not going into the civil rights movement right out of the war. So when he got out of the war and got beat half to death trying to drink out of the water fountain, and then ended up at begging to get into Morris and had some favor and got into, he was headed for the good time life. I mean, as a chemist at, we had, I call it with patent leather shoes and lace socks days. I mean, he always had his Cadillac, and he was having parties with the upper crust colored people in Savannah, and they were living a high life for Black people at that time. But you talked about a Kairos moment. And there was a moment in Savannah that changed everything for him. When he ended up quitting his job as a chemist, having my mother, who was the head librarian at Savannah State.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Job. Yep. And then go into the movement. So that moment as was just one of the moments that changed his destiny.
Right.
When he was told by someone in an ice cream shop, we don't serve no niggas here. So after that moment, he became somewhat of a civil rights leader.
Okay.
Although he still had a long way to go to really get to who he eventually became.
Right.
He invented the night march in Savannah.
The night march.
Yes, which was most dangerous. Black people couldn't march during the day. They would lose their jobs. He used to preach from Tamachichi Rock downtown in Savannah.
On his lunch hour.
Ability to what?
I said on his lunch hour.
On his lunch hour.
Department of Agriculture, yeah.
He had the uncanny ability to get working people to listen to him and believe that they could do the impossible.
Right.
And that's how these marches began, these night marches in Savannah. Dr. King said he was the man singly most responsible for integration in the Southeast.
Wow.
But they were marching at night, and it was most dangerous. And also, he began to develop, because being a chemist, he understood the big picture, as Yolanda calls it.
Yes.
He understood that elements come together to make change. And he was responsible for, that's one of our grandkids, responsible for making really effective change in Savannah and the Chatham County area. He was too militant for the NAACP. His relationship with them did not work.
Yes.
But he was a member of the NAACP. But they felt that he was too radical because, really, he was not nonviolent at that time.
Okay.
So
you emphasize at that time, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Grow into nonviolent.
Yes.
To grow into coming up under somebody, being in authority under somebody.
Yes.
He had to grow into all of that. But I think that what Martin Luther King saw in him that caused him to hire him from Savannah to come to Atlanta, I believe it was in 65, was the ability that he had to get people to do what he asked them to do. Whether it was going to jail or marching or being beat or, we had the huge Klan cross burned in our front yard. That I remember staring at as a little girl. The people that he got on his staff were soldiers. They were not just civil rights people. They were actually literally soldiers.
Wow.
Who knew they were going to get beat. Who knew that they would be bludgeoned, that their blood would be shed. And they accepted that and worked with him because he could make you believe that what he was doing was righteous.
The power of persuasion. He and Dr. King became very close. And from many oral accounts and written accounts too, I hear that your father was really one of the strategic minds of the movement. in terms of planning and orchestrating. I want to share this brief clip with you. And of course, it is a very interesting perspective. Listen to it.
And I said this very publicly. Hosea was more important than Dr. King, except he wasn't as well known, and of course he wasn't the leader of the group. But Hosea did more, I think, for civil rights. The march from Selma to Montgomery, Hosea would do all the marching. He'd plan the marches. Now this John Lewis, they said John Lewis led that march. John Lewis didn't have a prayer. That was all Hosea.
Well, that was Alie-Pat. And, Alie-Pat spoke the truth, his truth, and other truths as well. But what do you say to that, though, in terms of, making sure that people truly understand the role that Hosea Williams played in the movement? What's the misconception people have about the movement as it relates to your dad?
What do you think? Go ahead. I don't know.
Well, I think that there's a saying, I can't remember the exact saying, but those who live the longest tell the tale.
Yeah.
That's not a saying I made that. That's a saying that I made up.
Okay.
But
so it is a saying.
But there are a lot of people in the civil rights movement who sacrificed their lives and their families and their health and their freedom, who people don't know, who people don't recognize. And so he is just one of those that got a lot more recognition than, say, Ben Clark or Big Lester, that really should get more recognition for the sacrifices that they made. And then also, I think that he was not really a get along person. His purpose was not to make you like him, or his purpose was not to get you to understand what his plans were or what he needed to do, why he felt he needed to do it. He was going to do what he was going to do, whether you wanted it, and he didn't feel that he had to convince you to come along with his point of view.
Sure.
I think that in that, it created a lot of friction.
Okay.
With his peers, so that he didn't get the recognition, and he's not getting the recognition that he should. When we went down to the celebration of the Selma and Montgomery March, and Obama and Clinton were there, we didn't even have seats in VIP.
Are you kidding?
No, not only were we not invited to march across the bridge, Barbara had to fight, and in order to even get us seats down front, so that we could see and hear the speeches. I remember we were going to a church. I can't remember. I think it was the ceremony. It was a church service before we did the march, and we weren't even on it. And Liz went down there, fought our way through. Liz got on stage and sat there, and because she was told that she could get there, she could do the closing prayer. And at the end, Jesse called. Jesse called on someone. I don't know who she was to do the closing prayer instead. Right. So it's sort of it carries on.
Yeah. But, and I know, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation. because I know history can be so misconstrued and pointed in one direction. And this is not to take anything away from any of the other players of the movement. But what it is to put in proper perspective, the players of the movement that were an integral part. And so when you talk about going across that bridge, there are two people marching together. You got John and Hosea Williams, and both integral to the story, and I too sometimes believe, that his role has sort of been relegated to a second tier, if you will, in the story. And so, I just have much love and respect for him. I've always had. This gives me an opportunity to put a picture up of the two of us that I cherish, that we took at some event together. But he was in school with my father at Morris Brown.
Okay.
And when I told him and made the connection, it was just a wonderful bond. So one of the cherished photographs in my collection of many photographs with your dad. So, I want to just open up and just talk about, I found some wonderful pictures. I've been on all y'all Facebook pages today, and I've been copying and pasting. But some of these are just some tremendous images of him. He was relentless, in his pursuit for justice of all people in the land. Let me also play briefly this clip, and then we'll come back and have a few more discussions.
I got my boy. It's about 8 minutes.
Hold on just a second.
This is a copy of his first newspaper. He just put out his own newspaper. He was trying to speak to the nation about poor people, and he got one copy out. We've been trying to get a newspaper out for 3 years. We just, got enough equipment. These are his belongings, shaving powder. We had been invited over to a local minister's house for a soul food dinner. And
you were just leaving for dinner?
Just leaving for dinner. And he usually walk out the door. He's usually dressed and he usually go, because he's usually always in a hurry. But he walked out there and held over, and the fellow who's been driving us around since we've been in Memphis told him, said, "Doc, you better get your coat." He said, "Okay," and he stood up there a minute or two, and I guess just a thing of destiny, I guess, he just was a target there for a minute or two, because he was fixing to come back in and get his coat on. All of the side of his face was shot off. Well, it wasn't long before policemen was all around. Then I wonder whether America had really lost its last chance. This day will be the most unforgettable day in my whole life. It's a day that I still have not believed. I still not can believe somebody's crazy enough to kill Dr. King, who wouldn't hurt anybody, but loved everybody, and really gave his life to the salvation of this nation.
Do you all remember the impact that had on him? Are you old enough to remember? And were any of you a part of the marches? Now, I'm not asking you to put your ages out, maybe not the grandchildren, but do you remember that period of time? Maybe you were young, just teenagers, but what do you remember about that time and the impact that the death of Dr. King had on your dad?
Well, he was sent away. He was so broken and so, he was sent away. And so just torn apart.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that he had the power of persuasion, and they knew that he had the leadership ability. He got out of the country on this so-called fellowship tour to 17 or more African countries right after that. And that's where the medallions come from that you see, the civil rights people wearing these medallions that he had made. He was literally a genius. He was someone who had the ability to organize a nation and implement programs nationwide, internationally. And he had to be controlled. He had to be put in his place. And so, but he never let that stop him. You know, he never let the fact that there were those that felt that he was too dynamic stop him. He continued on. He delivered one of those medallions to Haile Selassie. He delivered one of those medallions to Mao Zedong. He was the first American, here is an example of one, not the first black, but the first American to go into China, you know, right when Chinese-American relations were restored. So he was someone who knew that no one would know who he was until he died. And he actually said that in an interview. But Dr. King's murder, because he met Christ when he met Dr. King. And he said that.
Wow.
That he was not nonviolent before he met Dr. King. And so that was a second transformational moment for him. And when he gave Skip, he didn't give lightly. He gave everything. Everything to whatever it was he was targeting at that moment. And in working with Dr. King, his job was to get beat. He and his staff would go all around the Southeast and even, what is that place they went to in the North? Cicero. And they would get beat. They would preach to the people. They would get beat. And then their blood would be shed. And then Dr. King would send in smooth talking people like Andy Young, maybe, or Bernard Lafayette to say, well, you know, we will negotiate with you. You give us what we want, or we're going to let Hosea and his group tear up this town. So he was the sacrifice quite often. And he knew how to take a beating. And his staff knew how to take a beating. So when we talk about leadership and the requirements of leadership, your life is not your own. Your life belongs to something else other than your own wants and your own desires. And this is what I learned from him. And I didn't know very much about him. Growing up as a little girl, you know, I just knew that I needed a father, and why wasn't he there?
Right.
Like other fathers were. And so the children of the civil rights movement grew up, some of them with a kind of post-traumatic stress syndrome.
I'm sure.
Well, Elizabeth says that, but by the time Elizabeth was, I think, 12, she had been arrested with Daddy so many times that they told, in Savannah, they told my parents that if she came back in there, they were going to send her off to juvenile.
Oh my goodness, really?
To stop her from jumping in the paddy wagon. So
you are your daddy's child, huh? You didn't have a problem with it at all, huh?
Yeah, she went to jail right with him.
Right with him.
I had to, and you know, I just happened to be the one that was the age, because my mother was determined that one of her daughters was going to be raised like a lady, and that ended up being Attorney Favor sitting there, raised like a lady, because I was wild, in the movement, hippified, everything you could think of. Dr. Barbara Emerson was pursuing her career at getting her doctorate and doing all of that. So, I mean, I just happened to be the one that was there.
That was there.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Everybody had a role. Let me bring in one of the grandchildren. Lauren, you've been so patient and listening. And you know what? And I'm sure you're asked this quite often, but what does it mean to have Hosea Williams and Juanita Terry Williams? I believe her maiden name was Terry. Yeah, Juanita Terry Williams. DNA in your body, and what has that meant to you, Lauren? And then I want Brother Hosea to chime in as well.
It's been a lot to live up to, definitely. Growing up in this family, like you see, we have doctors as aunts, we have activists and aunts that are running huge charities and helping people every day. Our grandmother was in politics herself. I mean, people are like, "Oh, your grandfather." I'm like, my grandmother did enough herself to feel the pressure to live up to who they are. But like you said, we do have their blood running through our veins. And I think it gives us a sense of purpose. I think we all, Liz said, you can live a life for yourself and you wake up every day, you try to, have your own self-motivation and your own wants and needs. But growing up in this family, there's always something in the back of your mind, like, I've got to be doing more. Right. Whether we take every day to do it or not. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us wish we would do more than we do. I know I do, at least. But there's always just a little bit of pressure in the back of your mind, like, okay, how can I have that big picture thinking like they did? How can I, travel the world and make a difference? And sometimes you can't travel the world to make a difference, but you can make a difference in the little things. And I think all of us do that. All the grandkids, we all are very generous, and I think we all, live our lives to make a difference. If we can help one another, if we can help a friend, whatever it is, it's running through our veins. And honestly, I won't say that one of us or many of us will make a difference in this world.
Wow, that's incredible. Brother Hosea, I'm going to call you that because I don't want to tear your first name up again. All right. But I ask you the same question. What has that meant to you, growing up as a grandson of Hosea Williams?
Well, yeah, like Lauren said, it's a hard act to follow, basically. But what it did for me is that it instilled in me that we're not here for us, that we have the ability and capabilities to help others and serve others. And watching him do so many things for so many people, it's humbling, unless you kind of know how small you are, but at the same time, know how much you can do. It just kind of showed me that, right, like, we're not here for us, that all the energy and intelligence that you have, that's really for putting out to others and making things better for them. I'm a school teacher, and that's pretty much where that came from, is that I have to give back to my community. I always knew when I was planning on being a teacher, I wanted to work in my community where I grew up, where I lived, where my people were, and that's what I did. And I always had it, like she said, in the back of my mind, that you have to be doing more. You're okay doing, but you got to do more, and it can't be just for yourself.
Yeah. Just for yourself. Wow, that is incredible. So I want to shift for a second, because your dad had a marvelous sense of humor. Can we say that?
Yes.
He had a wonderful sense of humor, and you all may not know, but I had the privilege of being on the Alie-Pat show one evening with Alie-Pat, your father, and Billy Borders was on. You remember Billy Borders?
Yes.
And
Billy Borders.
Yeah, William Borders. Oh. And all three were on. And I tell you, I was sitting there. My first book had come out, Going Against the Wind. So Alie-Pat wanted to bring me on. And it was just wonderful. Hosea Williams was just lifting me up and saying, Pat, you don't know anything about Black history in Atlanta. And Billy Borders was correcting me and all. And I was caught up in the middle of that. The combination, the chemistry of the two of them. But I want to share just a brief moment of this that you all have seen, but there may be some folks in the audience who have not seen this from your dad's funeral.
Okay, sit down. You know, I thought I was going to be last, so I could dog out all of the other dudes, you know. You better let me alone, boy. I don't know who that is in that casket there. It certainly isn't Jose. That ain't the man that I know. I'm going to give you the other side of this man. You ready for this?
We will picket, we will sit in, we will march, we will boycott, we will do whatever comes within the purview of nonviolence, and I'm talking about all-out movement. We will jail in, suffer, we will be beaten, bleed, and it's a good possibility that many of us will die.
I just wanted to share a brief clip. You all know the rest of that Alie-Pat presentation, and I encourage you to Google it or go on YouTube and see it. But they have such wonderful friendship and loved Atlanta. I mean, they just truly love Atlanta. What do you remember about the two of them together?
Well, I just remember the friendship. It was a real friendship.
Yeah.
And they met at the American Legion over there on Auburn Avenue, not too long after Daddy came to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And Alie-Pat was someone that I think that I always felt that if I needed him for anything, I knew that he would be there because of the love that he had for my father.
Sure.
And in fact, after my father passed away, I had an issue and I went to talk to him about it. And the advice that he gave me was the same advice I think I would have gotten from my father. So it was a very, very deep friendship. They played around a lot. The shows that they had on public TV, I still have people coming to me now and saying, man, I used to watch those shows. Those were the funniest. Today, they would have had a reality show.
Yeah, easily
would have had a reality show.
And making some good money with that too.
Right,
I mean, because the chemistry was just unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I really remember Alie-Pat. He's one of those people that I have in my life that I don't remember not knowing.
Wow.
He was always there. And he was, my father didn't have a lot of friends. He had a lot of associates.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a lot of friends. But to me, I believe that Alie-Pat was a friend and a brother to him.
Yes, indeed. Listen, check this out for a second. We will, not that one. Hold on just a second.
Welcome back to this nation. Yeah. I was just saying that's behind him.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying in that clip when he's speaking, that's Elizabeth standing behind him.
Oh, it is. Let's look at it again.
We will picket, we will sit in, we will march, we will boycott, we will do whatever comes within the purview of nonviolence. And I'm talking about
Elizabeth is looking arrest ready. She's looking like, okay, daddy, whatever, bring it on. Wow, that's something. That is something else. Something else.
The last time that I was arrested, I was the Black woman to spend the night in the Forsyth County Jail in 75 years.
Oh wow.
And I ended up, he was getting in the petty wagon and I was going, no, don't take my daddy. No. He turned around and he said, would you shut up? Why are you hollering?
Wow.
So we were picketing Oprah Winfrey.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Oprah Winfrey And because she thought that she had all the nice white people on her show, but then some Klan ended up sneaking on her show. And one of them told her, well, you could come down here anytime, Oprah, because you ain't a regular nigga. And that's when she packed up her crew and got out of town before dark. But being in that cell in Cumming, Georgia, and looking up and seeing the barbed wire, and then they came into jail about 3 a.m. and said to Hosea Williams, we sent a limousine and 4 cop motorcycles for you because they're going to bomb the jail and they're going to kill you.
Jesus.
And I remember him saying, I haven't done no crime. I'm going to do the time. So that's the way he was. He would not leave jail when he got locked up because he understood. If you read like in Philippians, when Paul says, my being in jail is for the furtherance of the gospel.
Of the gospel, right.
That's how he saw being in jail.
Yeah.
So my going to jail, I don't know. I don't think it was all because I was all that much into civil rights. I just wanted to please my father and be the daughter that he would love and want me to be. So I ended up going to jail all those times. The relationship between fathers and daughters is very complicated. And so, but going back to your comment about Alie-Pat, I think that Alie-Pat became his only friend toward the end. His only real friend. And I do know that they loved each other deeply.
Yeah.
I wish I had some copies of those shows. But what they would do is they would tape over the show from the previous week. The next week, they would tape over the same tape.
I heard that.
So
just didn't realize the significance and the historical value that those shows had. But let me share this one.
But I still want to know where all this money went.
He keeps saying in this article, Pat, I wouldn't talk. He sent me a letter. You know what was in the letter? How much of the church's money was spent in politics. I said, fool, if I spent some of the church's money in politics, you think I'm going to tell you? And so I told him on my show, and I'm going to tell him on your show, Atlanta Constitution, go to hell. And I know this newspaper is owned by the richest woman in the world, Miss Cox. Miss Cox, y'all trying to get me go to hell. Now you didn't even know what you trembling about, boy.
I'm
you
scared.
trembling?
I don't like to see you talk to white folks like this.
What? You don't like what?
But I don't like to hear no black man talk to white folks like this.
Standing up, speaking out for what I believe.
But there was a method to his madness. I think both Pat and Hosea Williams would maybe play the fool a little bit.
Pat, I want to ask you something. Now, you so smart, and you think you smart.
No, I don't think I'm smart.
Yeah, you do.
I'm the dumbest fool I know.
Because they knew that they could reach people that way. If they had gone on as a snob with their nose in the air, I think people would have reacted differently.
If you don't have dignity, that's what Jesus had. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. had. That's what I try to have. Now, you can't have it. Can y'all show these shoes?
They see you.
All right.
But Pat, where you get them? Where you get them?
Oh my!
I tell you, and it just incredible. So today, you all, you out at Lincoln Cemetery today for a celebration, and Michael Julian Bond was there, and he shared some footage. I think. Let me see if I have it. Well. Got a few pictures of you all out there today, but it's important on this day, of course, to remember your dad, and your mother is also at Lincoln Cemetery as well. But what does a day like today mean for you all? And my brother Fimo, you've been mighty quiet. this evening. What does your father-in-law mean to the world, to Atlanta? On a day like today, where we remember, his death.
Well, I can share with you the fact that I think it was good for my longevity in the family to be a man of few words.
Mm-hmm.
That helps you to survive the family and know when to speak. I think he did like me. I think he tolerated me. I think he liked me in the way that he did. That's his daughter, and nobody's ever going to be good enough for Elizabeth.
Of course.
But I always I served him. I did my job. I didn't raise hell. I didn't hit her and beat her and cuss her and beat back. He knew I was a good, decent guy.
Yeah.
And I think that all of that worked as far as me being able to learn from him, because I spent a lot of time around him, believe it or not. But I can honestly say I never really knew him.
Okay.
And I don't think he really knew me either, or that we would become what we are today as leaders who carry on his legacy 20 years after his death.
Right.
But he did instill in me the whole idea of service and being genuine, being somebody authentic, because he was an authentic person in a very phony time of a lot of wannabes and pretenders, and which we still have a lot today, people who pretend to be about what he was about, but he was the real deal, and that always took precedent over all the foolishness and the shenanigans that was going on around a man like that.
Right.
There was always a lot of stuff going on around him, sometimes that angered me and Elizabeth, because some people didn't understand. They tried to take advantage of him or try to use him or play him and stuff. Even as smart as he was, it was still a lot of deception and games people would play, whether it was the mayor, city hall, the cab commission, the state legislature. He had to raise hell basically wherever he went, because somebody was always trying to, get over on the community. He was the one who brought the death of Virgil Williams, the young man that was killed by the police. That was 1971. He was doing Black Lives Matter before people even had a thought about what the real deal was.
Yes.
Virgil Williams, young man, and one of the, they either had Techwood homes, they had all the different projects back in those days.
Right.
He cared enough that he fought for justice for that young man, even though he never received it, but he would raise the consciousness of people. And I think that's the greatest thing that he imprinted on me, is to always be about what was right for the common person, the least, the nobodies that people wouldn't even give the time of day to.
Right.
He cared and took time with those people. And I was so impressed with that. I think that's one of the biggest things that he did for me, is always take time, whether they are big people or little people, whether it's somebody or nobody's, because you don't know who they really are. And I thank God for that lesson that he gave me as his son-in-law to, be about that. Be about that, man. That's what he was. Be about that kind of work.
Wow, that is so rich and so beautiful. Talk about all of you, the legacy of the Hosea Helps, but Hosea Feed the Hungry. We're coming up on the Thanksgiving holidays, and in Atlanta, Thanksgiving is synonymous with the lighting of the tree at Riches. Well, it used to be Riches, Macy's, and the Hosea Feed the Hungry. Those are two of the major Thanksgiving traditions that you all have been doing for how many years? And how did he start that wonderful ministry of taking care of God's children?
This is the 50th Thanksgiving dinner.
Is it the 50th?
Literally, Hosea Feed the Hungry. And I wasn't at all of them.
Okay.
Because I lived in New York for 10 years.
Okay.
Literally every year at Thanksgiving for the last 50 years, he fed the hungry and the homeless.
Wow.
And when he died in 2000, there was the question asked to me and my brother Andre outside of Piedmont Hospital, well, what's going to happen to me? Homeless lady asked that. Of course, he was passing away upstairs. I can't take any credit for anything because I didn't have any choices.
Right.
It wasn't because, and I say this over and over again when I do interviews, that I cannot see myself as a praiseworthy person because I did it because I didn't have any choices. And, you know, the Bible says some people preach Christ out of one, you know, some people preach Christ out of this, but Lord, just let Christ get preached.
Yes. Yes.
So I found out that there was a story that he was walking down Auburn Avenue after Dr. King was killed, and he saw a man eating out of a trash can. And he said to the man, why are you up here eating out of this trash can in a city like Atlanta? Auburn Avenue was the Tulsa of Atlanta. And the man said that he hadn't eaten in 3 days.
Jesus.
He immediately went into the fish.
I think it was churches back then.
Still there, huh?
It was churches back then, wasn't it?
Yasim's Fish, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's still there.
Still there.
And bought him a fish sandwich, and the man ate through the wax paper and the brown paper to get to the sandwich. Well, he immediately went across the street and talked to Reverend William Holmes Borders and started feeding 100 homeless men. My mother made the soup. They had 2 or 3 volunteers at that time. That's why I say I don't see myself as praiseworthy. Because those people were praiseworthy. Those people that came out to feed the homeless at that time were praiseworthy. And they continued, and I remember seeing it unfold. Well, once you start feeding homeless people, you find out they need medical care.
Yeah, exactly.
You find out they need clothing. You find out that they need a job, that they need some better education. All programs that begin to appear come out of the fact that you fed the hungry. And he had all these programs, but he was doing it from his pocket. He was paying people's rent out of his pocket. You know, helping people. He had something called complaint night, and the people all over the city could come and make all their complaints, and he would try to solve as many problems as he could. And so I had a blueprint of sorts, but I had no idea that the blueprint was as definitive as it was, and it was actually real. That if you start paying people's rent, they will come. If you start providing jobs, if you start keeping the food running, if you do the clothing, Morehouse Medicine came and did the medical clinic. I just saw this thing taking shape like it had a life of its own. And I remember the day that I asked him to take his chair out of my office, because I did not want to sit in that chair. I wanted to be an actress, Skip. That's what I wanted to do. However, it takes you over. The people and their needs and your sense of responsibility, my feeling that I want to please my Father,
right,
which still lives in me, even though he's dead and gone, took precedence over what I wanted to do as an actress. Because to be an actress, I would have had to leave Atlanta and move to LA. So luckily, God gave me a man of God who walked with me every step of the way. And the volunteers had to make a decision. Are we going to follow them or not? Because you can't do any of this without all those volunteers.
Yeah.
If I go somewhere and go away, those volunteers will come and run that dinner. I don't even have to be there. Literally. I mean what I'm saying. I don't have to be nowhere around.
Because you know they got it.
They got it. And they've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's a very unique thing that has its own energy and its own life that was started by Hosea Williams at a time when Dr. King had been killed and he did not know where his next journey would take him. So we talked about 3 Kairos moments. We talked about the one in Savannah.
Okay.
We talked about the one when Dr. King hired him from Savannah and brought him to Atlanta. And when Dr. King was murdered and he found his life with the homeless. And the homeless are great people.
Yes, they are.
They don't judge you. They love you no matter what.
That's right.
And so I learned so much, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity, even though, I want to be like Miss Portia and have my own show, but that was not to be. So,
But listen, whenever you do get the opportunity to slip in and add you and a female, y'all steal the show. You know that. And I remember, and people just looked at me crazy because I didn't know you all were in the movie Ray. Okay. And when y'all came in and stole that moment, I shout out, I know them, they from Atlanta, Georgia. And so I know it has been a tremendous sacrifice. But look at all of the people that have had meals and have been treated with humanity and dignity.
What people don't know, Skip,
what?
We built a school in the Philippines that's still operating.
No, I didn't know that.
What they don't know is that we went to Haiti every summer for 9 years in a row, taking medical supplies to Haiti and feeding people in Haiti. We fed people in South Africa. We fed people in Kenya, in Uganda. Wow. So wherever you go, it's a big X on your back.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, those are people that feed the hungry. Whatever language they're speaking. And, everybody in the family has given away part of themselves to Jose Feed the Hungry.
Oh, I'm sure. I know it's a family affair. It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Lauren, you wanna chime in on the significance of this, because it's a ministry, second to none in Atlanta. It is a ministry, and you've been involved in it at some point in time as well.
Yes, definitely. I've gotten as involved more recent years, just because when I was younger, it was kind of that, like you said, it's a family affair. So you have to go on Thanksgiving or, Christmas. It's like a mandatory thing, I think, growing up. And it wasn't until we got older that we kind of started to say, okay, like there's a reason we're doing this, more so than just we should do this for our family. You start to feel a responsibility and that duty that Liz was talking about. Especially when you get older and you start to have conversations with the people that are there. And like she said, when you hear their stories, you're like, oh, I really think this is happening. And their stories get more relatable as you get older, because when you're young, it's like, well, no, my mom will take care of me. I'll be fine for the rest of my life. You get older and you realize, like, no, life can happen. This could be me at any moment. This could be any of us at any moment. And you start to realize that when you start talking, you start hearing these stories. You start working with Aunt Liz and seeing, you know, these interviews that she's doing. And for me, you know, watching her do those interviews, it's just like, wow, like what she's saying is really true. And, you know, she's out here. I know she doesn't feel like she is this amazing person, but we all feel like she is in what she's doing. So just watching her and Uncle Famo and what they do, it's really an inspiration. And like she said, I think every member of the family has definitely given a piece of themselves to Hosea, and you know, we'll continue to give more. And I'm sure at some point, like she said, she wants to be an actress.
Yes,
and she is an actress. She already is an amazing actress. She's already been so successful, but I know that's what she loves. So I know that, you know, I don't know which one, but I feel like she's got like this crown, and she's about to pass it over to somebody.
Right.
So somebody's got to do it. You know, it's definitely something that we cannot let go. And as a family,
Yeah,
I don't see that ever
absolutely.
happen.
So have you moved into your new facility yet?
We have one toe in and one toe out.
I got you.
But the building is finished. We're meeting with Comcast over there for the telephones. We will be the largest African-American run human service organization
Oh my.
Southeast. Our goal is to become national and international. So this new headquarters is already too small.
I bet.
You know how you think too small?
Yeah.
God wants you to think bigger.
Yeah.
As we moved in, when we put the food that we had in there, we didn't have any room for any more food.
Wow.
So now we have to build another building, and there's 2 acres attached to it.
Okay, so you have the land.
We have the land.
Yeah.
We have to find the capital to build on the land, and hopefully some affordable housing as well.
Yeah. That's incredible. Barbara, I know she's sort of been quiet because we're having some audio issues.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Barbara?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, we can hear you. And I'm so glad that you were persistent and coming back in. But we lost you very early on, you know, but I just wanted to from you, you know, the legacy of your dad. What could this generation of young people know about your dad?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things that are important that he brings to young people. And one is that the story that I was telling you in the beginning of where he started, being the child of a blind Black teenager who was the daughter of sharecroppers. You don't get much more humble beginnings than that. And it's a story of an illustration that your circumstances don't determine your destiny. So when young people tell me, I don't have this and I don't have this, I don't have this iPod and I don't have these sneakers and I don't have this computer, you know, it's children often focus on what they don't have and their disadvantages. And I think it's important for them to learn that where they are today doesn't determine where they can go. And his life is an example of that, having started with those humble beginnings to become, I don't even like to use the word icon anymore, but having become one of the most significant leaders of the civil rights movement. Because something that people don't understand or don't recognize is that Hosea Williams was the only civil rights leader who was on the ground organizing people and had a seminal role in the movements that were responsible for the 2 pieces of legislation that came out of the modern civil rights movement. He was in St. Augustine. That was the catalyst for the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. and he led the Selma march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and organized it with John Lewis, who came the morning of the march. And Hosea Williams was the director of the Selma to Montgomery march that went to Montgomery. And that march was responsible for the passage of the Voting Rights Act. And nobody else, including Martin Luther King, played the role that Hosea Williams played in being the driving force behind those two movements. So it's important for young people to understand that there are roles of leadership beyond the Martin Luther Kings and the Malcolm X's and the people who get the highlight, because I think that's a dangerous thing for young people not to recognize, that it takes a Hosea Williams and it takes a James Orange and it takes a Ben Clark. It takes, with various levels of leadership and various kinds of skills. Nobody could do what Hosea Williams could do. He had a specific role and he was excellent at it. He could get people to move. He could motivate people in a way that no one else in the movement could. And that was what he did. And that was Dr. King's talent. He was able to bring together people who had significant skills and put them together as a team and utilize their skills to the advantage of the whole. And that's another thing that young people and older people, as Black people, that we often lose sight of, is utilizing our individual capabilities for the good of the whole. We often I don't know any group of men, and I was older, I was in my teens in Selma and for the March on Washington. So I was like a junior staff member. I was a staff member. So I was around these men as a worker, and the tremendous egos. I've never known men with larger egos, but they could control them for the good of the group. And that's a difficult task that especially I think young people have a hard time learning now.
Amen. Amen. Beautifully stated. So the definitive biography of Hosea Williams, is that in the works? Is somebody working on that? And also the movie, who's going to play Hosea Williams? That's what we want to know.
Well, I'm working on a film script for a film. But you know, when he died, he left so many businesses.
Okay.
And with his life, there's so many opportunities to tell it.
Right.
Because I know that Barbara is working with this young man that did his thesis on Daddy.
Yes, there was a young man, Dr. Rolandus Rice, who is a dean at Alabama and at one of the universities in Alabama.
That's my friend, my buddy, grew up in DeKalb County, a scholar par excellence. If he gets a hold of the Hosea Williams papers and collections, you have a hell of a book, I'm telling you.
His dissertation was on Hosea Williams. That was his dissertation topic, and he has completed it, of course, and gotten his degree, and we're working on it's an academic dissertation, but we're working towards making that a more readable book for the public.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is good news.
Andrew Young's documentary producer. He's been doing some work and has found some more footage of materials that he thinks can be added to what is existing, and he's doing a documentary on John Lewis, C.T. Vivian, and Hosea Williams. He's unearthed a lot more material than he knew was there. I actually just talked to him about that today. So are going to be more more things available on Hosea Williams, but the definitive autobiography has not been written. Rolando's work is a scholarly piece of work that has good potential.
I see. Wow, that's great. That is great. Well, I want to show this clip and then I'm going to get some closing thoughts from each of you. And thank you so much for your time and for sharing. But let me share this clip.
All right, ladies. He emerges from an office on Peachtree Street, a sometime politician and perennial local legend.
You think I ought to get okay, lovely.
But this is a new hat for Hosea Williams, minister by faith, professional chemist by trade, civil rights agitator, and advocate for the hungry and homeless.
We ought to turn right, though.
It is Williams as tour guide, leading us through the streets of his adopted hometown.
Auburn Avenue. That was the most celebrated black economic era other than Harlem in America.
And the Hosea Williams tour is more than a drive through Atlanta. It is a look in the mirror at who else.
So this was like paradise to me, but I was one of the playboys. I'd get sharp as a tack. I mean, I was supposed to have been real good looking with slick hair back in those days, and I would come to Auburn Avenue just loaded with beautiful women.
You were scoping babes the whole time.
Oh, yes, sir. The most beautiful women. And they got the prettiest women in the world.
If Williams sounds a little single-minded, well, perhaps he's earned it. He's made a career of leading high-profile and often ill-fated protests, from Forsyth County, Georgia, to Selma, Alabama.
I've been in jail 133 times, bled in 20 states.
Where do you want to go now?
I want to go to Hunter Street.
Now at age 73, Williams is retired from politics, more or less. You do any driving anymore?
Oh, yeah. Not right now.
He also says he's quit driving, at least temporarily, the result of a license suspension that followed more than his share of traffic tickets. Did you ever see that story and he followed you around driving?
I think I did. I got to the stop sign and turned right. There wasn't no traffic coming.
Commissioner Williams at the wheel, running this stop sign.
And he talked about how I ran over stop signs. And, you know, I was one of the first black race car drivers in the nation. Hey, baby, hey, sweetie. She was really crazy about me. Hi, baby, 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 baby.
Even across town from his own neighborhood.
These are middle-class Negroes.
The territory is home turf to Hosea Williams.
This was the first nightclub that integrated in the Southland.
And I bet you were there.
I was there. Atlanta was known as having some of the most beautiful black women in the world. Now in the corner there, that was Jacob Drugstore, one of the most popular places where all the pretty girls hang out.
What was Reverend Williams like as a young man?
He was fast. All the ladies would walk in and give him a kiss.
Just give me a little kiss on the jaw. God bless you. Jose is old and ugly. I am young and handsome. I was telling him that one thing brought me to Atlanta.
What?
Atlanta had the most beautiful women in the world. Chuck, I'm the most popular dude who lives in this city. Just get out in the street. Take me to Buckhead.
And for Williams, it all started a half-century ago.
Should I go left? Should go left, yeah.
With what he cheerfully admits were some less than righteous pastimes.
Poker, dice. I mean, some of the biggest games I've been in my life.
And you were good at it?
Oh, yes, sir. I was a pro.
So you were a friend to all the racketeers?
All the racketeers. You know, I was popular and good looking and dressed well. I sang, and I danced. A professional dancer one time. Well, we used to do that was the boogie back in those days. And the other one was the trigger toe. I was good. That's the way I got the attention of them girls.
Such a career. And all of it makes perfect sense through the tour guiding eyes of the Reverend Hosea Williams. You were a race car driver once?
Race car driver. I'm uncontrollable, but I'm happy, and that's what life is all about.
That's priceless. It's just priceless.
That's amazing.
I tell
Skip,
you.
You have to promise me that when we get our building open, you will share the pictures and the clips that you have. So we're establishing a history room over there.
Oh, I hope so. I was going to ask you if you were going to do that. Yes.
Yes. And we're going to have a room there where anytime anybody comes into the building, they can see who Hosea Williams was through
Yes.
videos and clips. Also, the Hosea House, which Lauren and the UC will be managing, will also provide for the young people an opportunity to see him and his work. And so they're going to be managing the Hosea House after we move out. And that's going to be producing income for charity, because we feed now 51,000 people a year.
My goodness.
We took the organization to almost a $3 million a year budget, but that is peanuts compared to the need that we see. And I want all of your listeners to know, if they live in the city of Atlanta zip code, we can provide up to $5,000 per family for them to not get evicted, to not lose their home, to not have to have their utilities cut off. This is only through December 31st.
Oh, wow.
So we can provide up to $5,000 per family for families living in the city of Atlanta zip code. And if you live in DeKalb County, we do also have funds available for that. But Hosea Williams, the reason why we have not yet met his dream is because he never wanted the government to keep him.
Okay.
He never wanted to depend on government grants.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he had Terry Enterprises, his chemical company, and he would take the money from the chemical company and rightfully so use it to fund his charitable efforts. So he had that business model. He also had Jose's bonding company.
I remember that, yes.
People couldn't get bonded out because their bail was so low. So we don't have that business model yet.
Right.
So that's the next phase for us.
Well, this is so exciting. And several of my wonderful friends and colleagues, Janice Seitz, Rogers, who worked at the Auburn Avenue Research Library. You all know Janice Seitz.
Yes.
Janice gave me my first job at the library some 20-some years ago.
Wow.
But of course, your dad's collection, the papers are there. And Priscilla Dickerson also works at the library. So they wanted me to make sure that I mention, you know, that the Hosea Williams papers are at the library, and that in normal times you would be able to go through them, but they are open but closed to the public. You would have to make arrangements. Abel Mabel says in Atlanta, they have little respect for the pioneers that paved the way for many. If you fight for the working class, they figure you must not be sharp. Honorable Hosea was sharp and true to the people. That's Abel Mabel. We all love Abel Mabel. Yeah. And there's so many comments that time will permit me. Dwayne, I got to read Dwayne's. Growing up in Kirkwood, I often saw Mr. Williams driving down Boulevard, now Hosea Williams Drive, talking to people in front of Langford Barbershop. He is and will always be a hero. Thanks for continuing the legacy. My good friend Nancy, all the way from Boston, strengthen community resilience before we use those words. And I think, is it a FEMO or a FAMO?
It's a FAMO.
I heard your niece correctly pronounce it, so I said I'm going to pronounce it correctly. A FAMO, you said it, you hit it dead on the head. He was Black Lives Matters before it became a household word. Absolutely. And so many people are just chiming in and sharing. One of his classmates, Morris Brown, Miss Bertha Shade, sweet Miss Bertha Shade, she was working at Morris Brown when I was a student. Mm-hmm. And certainly one that we went to just in case we got in a little trouble. In fact, I have a couple of pictures from the Morris Brown yearbook of your dad. He's on the front row on the right with the kind of a sweater vest.
Okay. Yeah,
wow.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. I've never seen that picture.
And that's the YMCA club, and this is his sophomore class. You can't see him, but he is on here, sort of towards the middle back. But I'll share these photos with you.
Oh, wow.
And just send me your email, and I'll be happy to share the ones that I may have that you all may not have seen, particularly the ones from my.
I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for doing this, because you thought it not robbery to do this in the midst of a pandemic when everybody's got their mind on something else.
Yeah.
And I will never be able to appreciate you enough for having us on tonight, because we don't gather that much as a family to talk about Daddy, Mom, and Barbara is the griot. She's the holder of the history, and she's the one that's going to have to teach the grandchildren so they'll be taught correctly, and the great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, hopefully. But I want to
chime in on that and saying thank you, Skip. And as far, you mentioned Morris Brown. Hosea Williams loved Morris Brown.
Yes.
The last, he and I almost had a fight over it. The last public outing that he had was to be the marshal at the homecoming at Morris Brown in 2000.
How well do I remember that, Barbara?
On November the 16th.
That's right.
So it was only a few weeks before, and he literally had to have someone to lift him up to get him from the house into the car.
Wow.
And to get him to drive him around. But he was determined to go to that homecoming and ride in the homecoming parade because Dolores Cross had asked him to be the marshal for the parade. So that was his last public appearance. He loved Morris Brown.
I remember that moment well. He did. He really did. So let's have some final thoughts. Attorney Yolanda, you've been kind of quiet for a minute, so please share any final thoughts on your dad and this moment in history and this moment in history.
Well, I think that it was ironic when I was listening to Lauren and Wiyusi talk about the feeling that they had of something greater than them, or the need, or the little voice in the back of their mind telling them that they needed to do something for the public good, because that's basically how we were raised.
Mm-hmm.
We were raised that you sacrifice your life for the good of your fellow man. That's how we were raised. So, Christmas, we had Christmas. I mean, we had I think that my parents used to use Christmas to make up for the rest of the year when they terrorized us for the rest of the year. But I tell this story that I'll tell it very quickly. One Christmas morning, my father got up and put Jose and Andre and I in the car, didn't tell us what we were doing, and took us out to this neighborhood. One of the poor neighborhoods in Atlanta, opened the trunk of the car and started giving away all of our toys for Christmas.
No.
And we just did it, so we just helped him, and we just stood there, and we were like, giving out our toys, but we never cried, and we never, did all the things that kids would have done today. And afterwards he came back to us and he told us that it was a test. And he wanted to know if these material possessions were more important to us than helping our fellow man. And then the next, and we had passed the test, and the next day that the stores were open, he took us to the stores and we were able to get anything that we wanted. So that's just the kind of person that he was. That's the kind of father that he was. And that's the way that he raised us. And I really appreciate the kind of upbringing that I had. In order to have the lessons that he taught us were things that I still live today and that I taught to my children.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Brother Hosea?
Well, yeah, I want to reiterate what Liz was saying, appreciating your time and energy in putting this together and helping us continue the legacy and spread the word and let everybody know that Hosea Helps is still out there and that things are needed and the world needs to make some changes, and it starts with us. So thank you.
You're welcome, brother. Thank you. Now, when the show is off, I'll practice your name and get it right, but I won't do it publicly.
Well, it's just like it's spelled. We see.
You see. Okay, I can remember that. I'm a Morris Brown graduate. Of course, I can remember that.
World traveler.
Oh boy, Lauren, your final thoughts.
Same thing. I just thank you for doing this, keeping his name alive. I think it's super important to keep his name alive. The charity for Hosea.org. There's always things needed. I understand everyone's going through a hard time right now. But I think it's important that we all remember that we are one and you've got to help the next person. So I think keeping his name alive helps, the mission, and helping the mission continues keeping his name alive. So that's just the most important thing.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we thought we were going to have your sister Portia. She actually came in.
She did.
But dropped. Right so Portia, wherever you are.
She's sick right now. She's watching right now. She's texting me right now, talking about it.
Okay. All right.
She's just sick. Okay. So she's on camera.
I understand. Well, hope she feels better.
Thank
Dr. Barbara, your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts would be one of Hosea Williams's, two of Hosea Williams's most famous statements that when you remember him, you think of the fact that he was unbossed and unbought. That sums him up. And what we have to remember is what he always said is that you are your brother's keeper.
Yes, indeed. Amen. All right. Brother Afamo and Sister Elizabeth, your closing thoughts?
Well, I just want to share that we are very mindful. We're very mindful that what it took 50 years to build, what is still happening in the legacy in the Williams family. But all it takes is a few stupid and reckless decisions that would bring it all down, or bring disgrace or shame. So we're very mindful of that kind of responsibility on us, the gravitas, and we don't take any of this lightly. We know the kind of responsibility and influence we have in the communities, and we have to dedicate ourselves to one another to complete this work. As 40, he married us. He married us 43 years ago.
Oh, he did.
Yes, he was the one that performed the ceremony at 80s Lake in the front yard.
Made the dress.
And I think that had a lot to do with us deciding that we're gonna find a way to work through all of the challenges and be with each other and do this together, because this is not something one person could do. It's not about any one person. Just like Jose Jr., his spirit is still very strong, and he had so much to do with the success. Andre, Tori, they're not with us, but they are with us in a very big way. And we are mindful that it's all the family, it's everybody to play the part they have to play. We get put out there on Front Street a lot, but it's not that we want to. I would rather be a recluse if I had my choice personally, but now I'm to serve. But it's not something I want to be out there all the time doing those kind of public things. You follow?
Right.
I look every day I go to my office, I have the picture of him. One side is the crossing of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and the other is a picture somebody drew of him saying, "Jose, feed my sheep." So I'm caught between those two things. So if I lose my mind, I forget my way, I just look up at one of those two walls and I come back to my sense again. So he's still very much with me. And I think about what would Hosea Williams do? I've been in those situations. I had to ask those questions because I didn't know the answer. So I'm very thankful that he still mentors me. He's my ancestor. And Big Mama, she loved me and treated me really good, and Booby. And so I have nothing but good thoughts and good feelings about the Williams family and what they represent and who they are. And I've been a part of it since I first met him in '75, and I've been a part of it ever since. So what can I do but be Hosea man? That's all I can be. Put my cape on and go out there.
I love it. Hosea man, huh? Superhero. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
She be trying to keep a hold on me. She be like, "God, out there." But that's why she loves me.
No, well, you know, he'll be 70 in a week. Well, not in a week, in December 13th.
Soon enough. Put it
Soon
like
enough.
that.
Yeah.
And we do worry about succession.
Yeah.
Well, succession is something that's constantly on our minds.
Sure.
My son, Alie-Pat, and Jose, the third, is with us at Hosea Helps. But I just wanted to tell your listeners, if you feel like you don't have purpose, or you're feeling like your life is, you need to do more, you know, you can do more. Take a sandwich and go down the street and feed the senior citizen down there. What you can do is what is in your hand to do. I love to think about my nephew Wiyusi teaching those children at that school, because he's doing what is in his hands to do. Lord knows our children need Black male teachers.
Yes.
To see somebody Black that's male that's teaching them. So everybody has the ability to feed the hungry, to follow Hosea Williams' lead. If you don't want to join us, do it. Go do it for yourself. And we thank you for that.
Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you. So a couple of things as we close. If someone wants to make a donation to the Hosea Feeds the Hungry, do you have Cash App? Do they go to the website? Is there a telephone number? I want to put that in it because I'm going to blast it and post it all week on my page. And I have 40,000 members of Skip Mason's Vanishing Black Atlanta. If everybody gave $10 to the Hosea Feed the Hungry, if they have Cash App, I'm going on it tonight. PayPal, but if everybody gave $5 or $10 to the Hosea Feed the Hungry, you know Thanksgiving is coming up. So tell us how to make a donation or a contribution. Let you put that on the screen, would you?
Yes, our Cash App is $HoseaHelps. HoseaHelps. Hosea Helps.
Hosea Helps. Okay, let me.
And the struggle that we're having is that many of the companies that normally give during this time of the year, the fourth quarter, are saying no.
Okay.
This year. And they're using the pandemic as an excuse. However, you know, we have money for client services, but we don't have operating capital.
Okay.
We don't have that business model. Another way to give is to go to number 4, HOSEA.org. That's PayPal giving. And you can also give by mailing us a donation to P.O. Box 4672, Atlanta, Georgia, 30302. We will be not only having Thanksgiving, but children's Christmas party on December 21st, Christmas Day feeding on December 25th, and Martin Luther King birthday, of course, in January. We will be there again.
And what was that zip code again?
30302.
30302. Okay.
Yeah. And between now and Thanksgiving Day, we need as many volunteers as possible at the warehouse with Jose III making food boxes, because he and his staff have to make 2,000 food boxes to be distributed on Thanksgiving Day. Contactless drive-through event that we're having.
COVID compliant.
The fraternities, the sororities, Morris Brown, anybody who can. The way they volunteer is go to the website and create a volunteer profile, and then you will be able to see the emails about volunteer.
So I need everybody to pull out their phones right now. I got mine out, got it on Cash App. All right. And we're going to hit pay. And that is $ Hosea. SEA helps, HELPS.
Yes.
There we go. Hosea Feeds the Hungry. Okay. And we're going to, everybody get your phone out right now. Get your phone out and send something. Okay. Now I'm sending $100 right now. I know I got some ballers on the page that can match me. All right. That can match me. Come on. Let's do it. We got to do it. We got to do it. God has blessed us tremendously. All right. And there could be nothing more important for us. Let me hit pay first while I'm talking. Let me make sure I send it.
Don't forget that.
Hey, Lord, while I'm up here talking, I guess I really do need to hit pay. All right. It's spinning and it's done.
All right.
Thank you.
People coming in and they saying, I'm in, done, skip, done, skip. Let's do this tonight, not tomorrow. And send whatever you can to help this great. They need volunteers. Go to the website as well. And I think I had that up. But go to the website. Here it is again. www.forhosea.org. They need volunteers. They need money. They need your support. They need prayers. Now, because of COVID-19, you're taking certain safety precautions.
Yes.
And measures. Tell us a little bit about that this time.
Yeah, Attorney Favors wrote us a COVID manual.
Okay.
That covers the CDC guidelines for our staff, our volunteers, and O said it's going to look like hazmat at Thanksgiving dinner. Because she got us all scared half to death. She wrote this document. She needs to publish it. And so we're giving away also gloves, masks, hand sanitizer.
Oh, wonderful.
All of that going out to the homeless and the needy, as well as with ourselves.
Yes. That is incredible. Well, I tell you, you have blessed us, all of you all, this evening in sharing your time and being so generous. I just have to just share this last thought from one of your dad's classmates. I was mentioning Mrs. Shade, Bertha Shade, but I didn't get to read it. And I want to just share this as my way of closing. She said, Hosea was always a leader at Morris Brown College. When the football players got hurt without insurance, he helped fix injuries with red clay and other remedies, majoring in chemistry, but innovative. He would also help the college when they were short with some financial problems. I'm not so sure how he and some of the friends got the money. Hosea was a born leader in every respect, and even started helping the community with food at David T. Howard High School. He was my classmate and friend, and I'm glad he's being recognized because he was greater than most people will ever know. From his classmate, Bertha dark shade. Still a sweetheart. Still a sweetheart. And I'm telling you, Miss Shade is on Facebook all day and all night, sending wonderful, inspiring messages. You know, and she was trying to get me to run for some office. I said, Miss Shade, that ain't my ministry. You know, my ministry is not elected office, but, you know, serving the church. But listen, Williams family, God bless you. You know, I love you and thank God for each of you and for your generosity and sharing time, and continue to stay safe and just love and blessings. And I think I'm going to see if I can pull this last clip up. I think this is Portia, since she couldn't be here, but I'm going to let her have this last word. You all take care. God bless you. Okay, I love you all. All right, you're very welcome.
Welcome back to Dish Nation. Today for Black History Month, we're shining a light on an American civil rights leader, my grandfather, Reverend Hosea Williams. Oh, yay! My grandfather, Reverend Hosea Williams, aggressively but non-violently protested racial discrimination in some of the most dangerous confrontations of the civil rights movement. He became one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s most trusted lieutenants, and on March the 7th, 1965, also known as Bloody Sunday, Hosea Williams and fellow activist John Lewis withstood beatings by the police at the Edmund Pettus Bridge as they attempted to lead the Selma to Montgomery March. This led to President Lyndon Johnson signing the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
That's
awesome. He was known as Martin Luther King's bull in a china cabinet because he was the one who would rile everyone up together and get them excited about the mission and the purpose and all that.
So he would pump them up.
He would pump them up. And, you know, I can remember when I was around 6 or 7 years old, I actually marched with them in Clayton County. I remember them throwing rocks at us and calling us.
That is just, I don't know what you want to call it. That is so touching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you want to donate to my grandfather's charity, it's forhosea.org.
Well, shout out not to only your grandfather, but also you for continuing to keep his legacy alive in the things that you do.
Thank you.